Traditional and conservative families, where relatives are always nearby, ready to help and actively involved in each other's lives, undoubtedly have their strengths, support, solidarity, and a strong sense of togetherness. However, the habit of trying to do things the right way can always lead to negative consequences that future generations will have to face. Assalamu alaikum, this is Finn. Today we are once again talking about weddings, but about a very specific type: marriages between relatives. We'll take a look at why this phenomenon emerged and lasted so long, what consequences it has led to, how people have fought it and continue to fight it today, and why it's important to talk about it. And as always, a question at the end of the video. Get deep. Consanguineous or kinship marriages are unions between two people who share common ancestors and are related to some degree. For example, marriages between first cousins, second cousins, or the children of first cousins. This phenomenon can be found in the Caucasus, the Middle East, South Asia, and North Africa. Notably, although such marriages are most common in predominantly Muslim regions, Islam doesn't encourage them at all. In Azerbaijan, marriages between relatives can occur in families where, for instance, children are raised by grandparents, uncles, or aunts. Sometimes parents, who are themselves relatives, arrange in advance that when their children reach adulthood, they will marry them off to each other. As they grow up, young people may fall in love with others, but elders interfere and insist on marriage within the clan. Their opinion often overweighs the wishes of the couple themselves. The medical issue is that the children born from consanguineous marriages face a significantly increased risk of hereditary diseases. One of the most common is thalassemia. In 2023, Azerbaijan recorded 4,916 cases of thalassemia, 820 more than the previous year. The consequences of decades of consanguineous marriages have already affected the country's genetic landscape. It's estimated that every 50th resident of Azerbaijan carries the thalassemia gene, a hidden gene that may not manifest for generations but eventually makes itself known. A similar situation is observed with hemophilia. Globally, the rate is about 1,000 cases per 10 million people, whereas in Azerbaijan this figure exceeds 1,700. Another possible consequence is cerebral palsy, which is partially genetic. It can deprive a child of the ability to walk, eat, or drink independently. Of course, not every child born to related parents has a pathogony, but risk increase significantly. The reasons are historical and social. Wealthy families feared large dowries that outside grooms might demand, so they preferred their own, keeping property within the lineage. Poor families also saw kin marriages as a guarantee. A relative knew exactly what the family had and didn't demand anything extra. Strong regional and clan identity also played a role. In some regions, such as the south of the country, it is still difficult to accept an outsider into the family. An outspoken rule applies: marry within the family or at least within the same village. Culturally, the tradition is reinforced by folklore and customs. Songs and proverbs often praise kinship unions. On top of that, stereotypes among the older generations push families to search for reliable brides and grooms among their own relatives. Some parents also limit their children's social interactions, especially girls, not allowing them to befriend unrelated members of the opposite sex. As a result, the peers they interact with most tend to be cousins. The smaller the social circle, the higher the chance that feelings will develop toward a relative. If we add low youth mobility, cultural stereotypes, and the classic "this is how our grandparents did it," it becomes clear why the phenomenon is so persistent. To address the situation, the state introduced mandatory medical tests for couples wishing to marry as early as 2015. Tests for thalassemia, syphilis, and HIV. Since 2020, newlyweds at the civil registry have been required to declare whether they are related. Despite this, 2,542 consanguineous marriages were recorded in 2022, about 4% of all registered unions. In mid-2025, the country fully banned marriages between relatives. There are concerns that the formal ban may lead to an increase in religious marriages, which are accepted socially but not recognized by the state. In cases of family conflict, such unions are not legally protected, leaving women and children particularly vulnerable. It would be wrong to claim that all efforts are in vain. Bans, education, mandatory medical checks, and transparent procedures are already showing results. The gradual weakening of all stereotypes may eventually push consanguineous marriages practices into the past. However, for now, despite the well-known risks, there are still families for whom the reliability and purity of kinship matter more than the health of a future child. The conclusion is obvious: when the health of the future generations is at the stake, everyone must make informed decisions and understand the responsibility for the potential consequences. And how would you convince your relatives to not to marry each other? Don't forget to subscribe, push the bell, leave the comment and share with your friends. By the way, the video is also available in Russian. And remember, there is no good or bad culture. There is another one. Salamat kalın.